Welcome to Punch Keys Podcast. I'm Poppy Minix, your co-host, bringing you blunt talk for the fiction novelist.
And I'm Cascade, your other writerly co-host. If you love to ramble about writing and need a tribe, you found us.
Are you ready? We're uncorking now. Let's talk about punching those keys.
Poppy, guess what time it is?
What time is it, Cassandra?
Oh, you know. Don't play coy with me.
I don't know. It's been a rough week, so I don't really know sometimes what today is, but it's going to be a good day. Well, it's going to be good now.
Well, we're also podcasting on a different day than normal right now.
That's true.
So,
that is true.
So there's your confusion right there. We're doing that for a very special reason. It is season 2, and we have our first guest interview for season 2.
Yay.
I'm super excited. We, last season for our first interview, we chose to do a close writer friend from our writer group to introduce interviews. And that is our, by far, most popular, beloved episode of all of our episodes. And it's fabulous. If you haven't seen it, go check out the interview with Emmy. We just adore her. But we thought we would do something kind of similar for season 2 for our first interview. And we wanted to bring on someone near and dear to us and kind of give a little peek into our lives and stuff. And so we thought about that. And we're trying something a little different. Okay, so season 2, we're going to talk a lot about editing and research, and everyone knows I'm obsessed with my encyclopedia collection and world building and just a tiny bit. But I really like learning and I like building amazing characters. And I think in order to do that, you have to go outside of your comfort zone and talk to other people. Do you have people like writer friends that tell you that? They're like, well, how do I find someone to ask? How do I ask them? How do I approach them? Is that something you hear? I hear that from people.
That is a very serious #writer problem, is just trying to figure out sometimes how the heck to get the information. I hear it all the time. What do you mean you just talk to them or you just call them? Who do you call? What do you do? It's like a, you know where to go, but you don't really know the path to get there.
Which for me, my brain looks at everyone I've ever known in the world and was like, ooh, what information do you have that I can use for a character? Because I am a weird, obsessed writer and everything in the world is about my characters in my world. So when I'm building a character, I'll look at aspects they have and I'll think to myself automatically, like, who do I know that has any experience within that realm? And so I had that line of thought when we were looking at interviews for this season. And I have a really, really close friend. He was my best friend in college. We've been friends for 20 years. I don't even know how many times I poke him and bug him because of his life experience. And I use it a lot in my writing. And so I'm going to kind of let him tell his experience. So first of all, I want to welcome, this is where it gets really weird because he has 2 names in my mind. Yes. He's going to tell me to welcome Jason. I am going to welcome one of my best friends in the whole world, Danger Ranger.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
So glad you are here.
So do you want to tell the Danger Ranger story or do you want me to?
I'm curious. I wonder if we have different versions of it. It's been so long.
Oh, my version's pretty simple. I mean,
mine is too.
Yeah, when you meet a friend in college and they're this awesome dude who did 2 tours in Afghanistan and was an Army Ranger, he is automatically an Army Ranger. So he's Danger Ranger because things that rhyme sound cooler, and then he just becomes Dange for the rest of your life. Like when I was telling Poppy people to interview, if I had told her I want to interview Jason, she would have been like, who? If I'm like, hey, I want to interview Dange, she's like, oh, okay, cool.
That sounds amazing. Let's totally do that. It's true.
Well, unfortunately, I did not do tours in Afghanistan. I'm not sure where that came from. No, I did a tour in Haiti.
Oh.
Yeah, I was pre-Afghanistan. I was the early stuff, so I was only I got out right before Afghanistan. I got out in 2000. No, I did get out in 2001, right before September 11th, because I remember watching it when we were in college.
Oh, I remember that too.
And I almost did get recalled, but I was out.
So how long were you in the military?
I was in for 4 years.
For 4 years. And you did, how long were you in Haiti?
I was in Haiti for 6 months.
Okay, 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So That's still amazing to me. And the correct information is always better. So thank you.
That's okay.
So, I mean, how many times, I don't even know, because you probably haven't counted it. I poke you pretty frequently about military questions.
Mm-hmm.
I also poke you pretty frequently because since college, you actually went to, I guess you could say, the police academy, and you've been a police officer for how many years now?
I'm in my 18th year. It'll be 18 years in November.
So the military training and the police training, the amount of information you can give me, and because we're close friends and I can just ask you and you're going to tell me real stuff, it is absolutely invaluable. So here's the question I have for you. So when a writer's looking at reaching out to someone they know with this kind of information and this type of life experience, how annoying is it to be asked questions about this stuff?
Well, I definitely have mixed feelings on that. So like when it's you, I don't mind at all, right? When it's close family, I don't mind. But usually when it's like strangers or acquaintances, it is a little annoying, usually because it's the same questions that you can sort of see. Some of it's a little, I think they're trying to just make small talk and those kinds of things. The number one thing we get is, tell me a funny story. It's just, you're just sort of being put on, so now I have to like come up with this funny story. And I'm like, okay.
Which is kind of weird because it's not really a funny experience.
I know. Well, there's definitely some humor, and we have to find the humor probably where it shouldn't go. But like, that's definitely a number one coping method, I would say, for both military and police, right? You can't see all those horrible things and not find a way to manage that, right? It's just gonna destroy you. So generally humor is the number one way that I have seen that we handle that kind of stuff. So, and that's unfortunate because then someone sees that, right? And they're like, oh, the cops are laughing about that, or the military guys are doing whatever silly, they see us doing silly things. Like, well, we're just trying to kind of cope with the trauma, I guess, or whatever that horrible experience was.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I remember being struck so hard because I don't think in college we ever talked too much about your military experience. It was just cool to me that you were in the military. And then as we got older, I mean, we've been friends forever. We've been at each other's weddings. Our kids know each other. Our spouses know each other. Like our families, we've been friends forever. We will be friends forever. We'll always be friends. And
she will track you down, so you know.
Probably. There are some friends you just don't let go of.
It's true.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I remember being really struck. I think it was after we had kids. We were a little bit older, and you were doing graveyard shifts for the community that we work in for as a police officer. And it was really, the tone in talking to you was so different from how I had known you before. It was so depressing. And you talked about how it's so hard to keep yourself up because you were working specific hours in specific areas where it was the worst parts of the community. And it's really hard to keep your spirits up in that moment. So when you're talking about the humor and stuff, that really makes me sad. It makes me think of that.
Yeah. It's a hard job for sure. We're dealing with the worst part of humanity, and that starts to affect me as a person for sure. And it's so gradual that I don't notice it, right? Where my friends and my family would notice that kind of stuff. And it wasn't till like later on, probably too late, or still glad I caught it. But I've been trying to, make those changes to get back to trying to be the normal person I used to be, so to speak. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but yeah, that was. And then graveyard work, that's just not good. Humans aren't meant for that kind of life. And so now you're mixing all sorts of different issues, right? There's just the stress and poor sleep, poor diet. It just takes its toll on you.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
So your life experience in the military, in the cops, is huge. I go to you a lot. It helps that we're really close friends. So someone coming to you who wasn't close, it's a little more uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then again, that's another negative aspect of the job. When you see the same type of people over and over, then you get around normal people, and your assumption is that they're like the people that I dealt with during the work hours. So you're just extra guarded. You don't trust anyone. Just because you see the worst, right? You see the most negative aspects of humanity, and then you're seeing it for 10 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week. you just start to assume that everyone's like that, which is not true, right? You can
Yeah.
just look at all the stats, right? We're dealing with 10% of society, maybe, and even that 10% of that is really the really bad. So you kind of have to just remind yourself of those types of things and let your guard down, I guess, a little bit, and accept some new friends and talk to new people, that kind of stuff. But see, I met you beforehand, so I had already trusted you. We already had that trust and that relationship. So, it's easy to talk to you still.
Well, that's good because, again, you can't get rid of me. So that works out really well.
I won't try.
Good. So I think for me, like when I'm looking at writers going to interview people, and if they're looking for someone who's military or police, I don't know that I would go cold call and just expect someone to talk to me. I think I tend to look for inspiration for people that I know and what they can bring. But that doesn't mean, so if someone doesn't know a military or they don't know a police officer, that they can't have any of that in their book, there's got to be some great resources that they could go check that out. Do you have suggestions for that?
One of the weird things is I can't watch movies, especially cop movies or cop shows. They're definitely the worst. I don't like to read cop books because, again,
why are they the worst?
Because some of the stuff we do is slow and not very dramatic, so they have to kind of over dramatize some of the things that we do. Biggest one would be the CSI. In fact, there's a specific name for it. It's called the CSI effect, that where someone says this crime happened, and then we come and try and investigate it, and they're wondering why we can't do the things that they saw in their CSI television show. Or it's not as
You have
rapid.
people actually do that?
Oh,
Constantly.
I bet you do. That does not surprise me at all. Oh,
I'm sorry, it's probably not funny for you, but like I can do like a complete comedy scene in my head with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It happens a lot. Why aren't you doing this? This is what I saw. I know you guys can do that. And it just turns out that a lot of that stuff's not true.
Yeah,
so
that's gotta be fun.
So when I do watch those types of things, I can't hold my tongue. So no one wants to watch them with me because I'm like, oh, that's why I can't do that. No, don't do that. They won't do that. Just things like, or like the same thing. The CSI guys are running around with guns and they're clearing rooms and stuff like that. Like that's all just Hollywood, just trying to over dramatize or make it more exciting. But there are a few, I can't remember what it was called. It was called End of Watch with Jake Gyllenhaal and I can't remember his name.
You had to watch that one. It was really, really good.
Yeah, that one most accurately portrayed like a patrol officer's relationship with each other, I felt.
Oh, no, you gave me a military one I'm thinking of. Now I need to write down End of Watch.
Oh, military-wise, Black Hawk Down was probably the most accurate for what I did.
That's the one that I watched after. That was really hard.
Yeah, and same thing, like they really got like the camaraderie down really well. And I liked that there were some new soldiers coming in and like kind of some of the razzing they got, like all that stuff was like spot on. They did a really good job. And I never read the book and I'd always meant to, but that was really good.
You've given me some YouTube channel advices that were really good. Do you remember the name of those? It's okay if you don't. I can pull them up
remember.
And anything we talk about, I'll put links in this episode so that people find it. And don't worry, anyone listening, I can go through and find the links he gave me. I will share them.
I can't remember. I know, like, again, at the beginning of my career, I definitely watched that stuff more. And then just from like going to we've been fortunate with my department. We have this new, it's called the peer support team. They really focus on our mental health and that kind of stuff. And just so we've got to talk to some doctors and psychologists, other types of doctors, I guess that's another doctor. But anyway, people have done research on police and military and that mindset and like how to get out of the funk or prevent PTSD or get out of PTSD and that kind of stuff. So one of the big things is always like do things outside of police work, right? I found my friends were cops. All we talked about was cop work. We just watch cop shows, or not watch cop shows, but you know what I mean? Like we're looking up cop stuff. I stopped watching cop videos where, like a lot of the agencies will release shootings and stuff. So we'll watch them for training purposes, but I try not to watch them a lot. Just again, to like get out of that that just, it's like you're in the same, I guess you're in like a trench, right? You're in that one, like your whole world is just police work. Like, so I'm trying to do other things, right? Trying to meet people who are not cops, go fishing, go exercise. Like the big thing is do what you used to do before you were a cop. So I haven't kept up with a lot of those things.
That makes sense.
That's been great for you, I'm sure. You're just
Yeah.
like a happy peach.
Yeah, well, definitely happier.
So that's something I always find really interesting when we're talking to. And I'm really grateful that I've known you for so long and you're so open about this stuff, because there is a difference with the psychology of being in military. There's a difference with the psychology of being a police officer. And there is a difference in psychology of who you are before and after those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
So let's just start off. Like, how would you describe yourself before you went into the military? I don't know. How old were you when you went into the military?
I was 20. Yes.
Okay.
I just turned 20.
So how would you describe yourself at 20 years old?
I don't know what probably the word would be, lost. Just confused. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Not really going anywhere. I had a bad breakup with a girlfriend at the time. I was fighting with friends, so to speak, that they were, the more I look, even looking back at it now, I'm like, they weren't really good friends. I was just working a dead-end job, poor, living in like the worst part of our town. Just like I knew I wasn't going anywhere. And especially when I looked around, like the people that I was close to, other friends and family, I just didn't want that life. I knew I wanted certain things for me and I needed to get there. So I wanted to go into college, but it was expensive, especially at the time, working a minimum wage job. So I knew the military had that benefit. And I'd done ROTC through high school, and I really enjoyed that. So I knew that that was a good path for someone in my position. I was scrawny, very shy, I lacked confidence, so to speak, like I didn't have anything like that. So joined the Army. I just knew that was one way to kind of build that up. You watch those commercials, right?
You're like a poster board for the Army.
Yeah, I was like, be all you can be, So I was like, oh, heck yeah, let's do that.
Do you feel like you were, after you did 4 years, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you were all you could be at the end of 4 years? Like it made a big impact
for the
huge. Better?
Absolutely. I always think like the Army basically saved my life, so to speak. Like I wasn't going anywhere. Just again, seeing like where my family had gone, and I just knew I wanted to just be better. And they definitely provided that. It was hard, absolutely, but I'm eternally grateful for what they did for me,
Yeah. When you were talking about resources earlier, it was the relationships among the police officers, among the military men that they had with each other. Even when you're talking about coping, it's how you guys cope together in the relationships. And so when you're talking about it, you didn't seem to have those relationships before going in the military. Are you still in contact with a lot of your military friends?
Oh yeah. We had like, especially there was like a tight group, like 4 of us. One not so much, but the other 3, yeah, absolutely still to this day. It's so funny, like you just remember certain things better, and like I will always remember my drill sergeants' names, but I can't remember teachers growing up anymore. A few of them, but drill sergeants, I will always remember those guys.
That is awesome. Was it what you expected? Like, did you expect to get what you got out of it?
I don't know what I was expecting really going in. It was a lot harder. It's so weird. You just tell yourself this is going to be hard, and then sure enough, it's hard. And
Right.
you just didn't know it was going to be that hard, I guess.
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't know, like, again, more coping mechanisms for what we had to do.
Yeah.
And then it's so strange. It's like they've designed this to build you up. It's like they're tearing you down and building you up to like a new person. And like whatever formula they made probably 100 years ago, it still works. So seeing that's kind of impressive. Yeah. So I'm not sure what I expected, other than I knew it would be hard. But then when you're doing it, I just didn't know that that's what it was going to be, I guess.
Sure. Different level.
Yeah.
Anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so much unknown.
So you got out of the military, a better version of yourself. You went to college. You found the most amazing best friend ever,
yeah.
obviously. What drew you to police work after that?
Well, I was going to college I think I started with computer science. and I was taking those courses, and it was so unbelievably boring for me. I used to jump out of airplanes, flying around in helicopters, you know what I mean? And now I'm going to sit behind a desk and type. I just couldn't do it. Couldn't bring myself to do it. One thing I wish I had done in the Army, I loved it for sure, but like I didn't get out with like a certificate. A lot of the guys and girls will go in and come out essentially prepared for a profession, but I was infantry, and there's no civilian equivalent for infantry. So I just thought, like,
well, I mean, kind of a
that's
police
what I thought.
officer,
Like the
maybe?
closest I could come up with would be police or security or something like that. So that's what got me to law enforcement. I
Awesome.
had never thought of doing that ever growing up. Never in a million years.
All right. So I have the same question for you for police as I did military. What was the version of Dange before becoming a police officer? Who were you?
Right before, I was probably a little more, I don't know, carefree. I don't know how to, it's so hard to describe yourself, but I just sort of did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And, someone said, hey, we're doing this. And I said, okay, I'm doing that. Let's go do that. Just whatever anyone was doing, I was just going and doing just to like get out and experience things. Yeah. And law enforcement definitely kind of took that from me, I guess, because now I'm very, very guarded, very protective of myself and those around me. I remember I had a pistol when I had just gotten out of the Army. I had a pistol that just stayed at home most of the time. But now, like, the thought of going anywhere.
Oh, you had a pistol in what was that? You had a name for that truck that you loved, that little Jeep truck thing.
My old 4Runner, the Ranger Mobile, what we called
it.
I love it.
You had a pistol in there because that was the first time I ever fired a gun. As you took me out and you pulled that pistol out.
I knew we were going shooting, so I planned that, and I also brought it to our San Francisco trip.
Yeah, that was
so again, like super rare. But now, like, the thought of going to the movie theater without it bugs me. So like, there's a lot of that. Expecting the worst, where probably pre-law enforcement, I was, just expecting good things, I guess, or not expecting bad things.
That's really sad. Like, my heart is just sad for you right now.
Yeah, it's just like I said, when you have a job that, like, just expecting everyone to fight you or run from you or even try and kill you, and then now how do you turn that off? Especially, right, I'm doing that 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week for 10 to 12 hours. And then I go to the weekend, but then those are only 2 weekends. So again, it's like, it's hard to like pull yourself out of that.
Yeah, it's not a switch you can just flip and be like, I am now in civilian mode. Like, that's not possible.
And then, like, clearly I've never had to use my gun off duty or anything like that, but you just see it in the news. So the news just kind of reaffirms my worries, right? We've had multiple shootings in this area, right? We've had a school shooting in my agency. There was the IHOP shooting, and just, it happens too much. But again, it's the news, right? The news is only going to report that, so it makes it sound like it's happening. You have to remember how big America is and how big our population is. It's really such a small percentage that these things happen, but you just want to make sure, because how bad would I feel if I was there and there was a shooting and I didn't have my gun and I wasn't ready or able to protect someone? I would feel like the worst person ever. Whereas before law enforcement, I would have just probably thought, well, that's not my job. Granted, being in the military, I would have felt a little bit more inclined to step up and do something helpful, but I would have still felt like, well, let's get the cops in here and put a stop to this.
Oh, my goodness. That's that's insightful. That's something to really think about.
So I hate to segue this, but I'm going to say for a second, this is like one of the most invaluable things when talking to people that you know around you. There's something different when you go and research a job and a profession than when you talk to someone in it. How it has personally and emotionally affected them, how they view it and see it, and how they view and see things. That's how you write diversity. That's how you write someone different than yourself in your writing. And his experiences are so different from mine. So for me, I actually have a book, I have a series with a character that is hugely modeled off of Dange. And it's, how do I have someone like that in my life and not be affected by it? How do I not want to show that? And so I think it's really important whenever we're looking at our writing and what we bring into it and step outside of what we know. And it's not reaching out to people we don't know with some cool job that we've never thought of. It's looking at the people around us and the experiences they've been through and talking to them. It's just invaluable.
I agree. And especially when you're doing your research and stuff, and when you're actually going out and talking to people and remembering things like this, is that there can be sensitive points and there can be a reason why people would be guarded. And it's because these jobs are not easy. And this takes an emotional toll on somebody, and to respect that and to understand it and not be like, well, tell me this, tell me this, tell me this. Actually be like, oh, like, let's actually have like if you get the opportunity to have a good conversation about stuff like this, be respectful of it and understanding, and try to come in with an open mind instead of being defensive, or instead of thinking what somebody else has gone through, or being like, I already have this story and I just need like this little piece and I really don't care about any of this. I just want like this tiny portion. Think about what you're taking from somebody, that this is their life, and being able to respect that. As a writer, we really have a duty to step into somebody's shoes. So don't take a portion of somebody and just cherry pick it. Like, actually listen to their entire experience and take from that, understand it, and express it in a way that's responsible.
The character I first created is entirely different than the character he is now. And it's through my conversations with Dane.
Nice.
Because I sit and talk to him, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I had wanted to do this, but listening to his experiences that are real and authentic and who he is, that's so much better to show this particular thing that he's talking about, or this experience, or this emotion. Like, that's what makes a great character. That's what makes a great story. When we get to feel something and see something and understand something more, you walk away from the story understanding a little bit more about something you don't have any experience with. It's incredible.
Especially when it comes to something it takes such a big part out of somebody. I mean, I think you really do owe it to sort of do additional research and and attempt to speak to somebody about it and talk about their personal experience, so that you don't just gloss over it and make it the shallow person that you want because it might work for your story, but it's not necessarily what anybody has experienced.
Which makes me just really, really grateful to have you in my life for the millionth time. I'm going to say that. I am going to segue to a couple different questions because there's some really good information, since I know you, that I know I would love to talk about. And whenever you're talking with someone, anyone who's listening, and it's someone who has this information, don't look at them as just the information. Yeah. Don't just read questions off of a list. Listen and care, because that's when you really learn the best and you can actually write a better character. It's so amazing. And so everyone knows who's listening, I totally talked to Dange and told him I was going to do this during the interview, and it's not a normal interview. So we're not prepared. Like shutting him off. Like he was expecting this.
I was.
Okay, so when I'm creating a character and I'm making a list and I'm going to go talk, so like I have this character and I want to go and talk to Dange. I have this character. I'm like, well, I want him to have military background. Okay, well, obviously I'm going to make him an Army Ranger because I know an Army Ranger, right? Why would I make him anything else? So, right, he's an Army Ranger, so I start talking to Dange and asking him questions, and a lot of his answers are constantly speckled with cop information. He constantly is threading in his cop experience. Like, it's hard for him to separate them, I've noticed, which makes total sense. So now my character has become a police officer when he left the military. What? That's so unheard of, right? And so I sit down and I look at different things that I want to ask for my character and things to make me understand his point of view better. So there are some more personal questions I would ask. And one of the things I've talked to him about and asked about is the difference between being in the military and being a cop, the difference psychologically and the difference physically. And I'm going to ask you that now. What's the difference?
Oh, right. Well, physically, the Army was better because they make you work out every day. It's part of your job. You wake up, that's the first thing you do every morning. And there's just so much geared around that. So, well, plus I was, 20 years old, so young and fit. So it just was way easier. And you don't realize like how much that translates to so much more in your life. Like, there's like studies, if you're depressed, one of the big things you should do is go and exercise. So like you're just in such a better position in life if you're working out just every single day. So for law enforcement, that sort of goes away. We try and work out as much as we can, but when you're on graveyard, your just sleep schedule's so hurt and you're so messed up that it's almost impossible or very difficult to wake up and work out or work out at the end of your shift. So it just depends. Same thing if you're on day shift. It's just so physically, you're just physically exhausted, I guess. And so like exercise definitely for me went to the wayside. I'm just now trying to get back into that, just again, like how important it is to you. You're also taken care of medically by anything. So you always have to be basically ready to deploy. So you have to see doctors regularly. You have to see the dentist regularly. You're just like constantly getting checkups. They're making sure you get your shots. They do all that for you. So everything's kind of like taken care of you. And you don't have to worry about it. They just come and say, hey, everyone's getting their shots today, right? So everyone just goes and gets their shots. But in law enforcement, like if something starts hurting, it's up to me to go and get that fixed. So we have a lot of back problems in law enforcement. Well, the military does too, but I guess kind of different reasons, right? When you're jumping out of planes and carrying heavy loads, it starts to take its toll on your back. But the law enforcement, we carry a lot of our weight around our hips. And then we're sitting in patrol cars and you're getting in and out of the patrol car. So your hips start going bad, which of course also translates to your back. But again, if you're hurt in the military, you have to take care of that because if you can't deploy at a moment's notice, well, there's going to be repercussions. You're going to be punished. But law enforcement, it's almost like just a normal job, right? If you work a 9-to-5 job in an office and you hurt, you go to the doctor and you get that taken care of. And maybe you can't type because you have wrist brace, carpal tunnel. So same thing with law enforcement. If I'm hurt, I can't work the road. I can't do patrol. I might do office work and that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure, like that's probably like one of the big differences for physicality. And then again, part of that might just be I'm just getting older. Things start to fall apart.
So I have to ask, it's like the biggest trope, the biggest stereotype in the world. Do all cops love donuts?
Absolutely. But then who doesn't?
How could you not like a donut? I mean, that's
what I don't get.
I don't like donuts.
Right? Yeah,
I
you're the
don't like
weirdo.
donuts.
We love you, but
Yeah.
oh my God, what's wrong with you? I mean, it's a donut. Come on, woman.
It is like, I don't know. It just doesn't do it.
I do love donuts, but I've always made sure I don't eat it in uniform just to avoid the stereotype.
That is fair.
Yeah.
Just Secret donut eating for cops.
Smart.
Check.
Yeah, I hide it. So just from this is all I hear later, right? Reading studies and stuff like, and I don't like to compare what we do to combat, but mentally there's almost like no difference for a cop's life and what some of the soldiers are going through when they're in combat. The big thing is that, so when you're in the military, you're on a rotation. So part of it, during one part, you're just in the barracks cleaning and preparing, and another unit is ready to deploy, and then another unit is deployed. So you rotate through those three statuses. So while you're deployed, obviously it's higher stress and that kind of stuff. You're out of the country. You don't have like your normal things that you have, especially when you're in the States. Right now you're in wherever. So in Haiti, for example, right, we're stuck in the base. We don't get to go out and do anything. So there's a lot of that kind of stresses. And then when you're out on patrol or doing whatever the mission is, again, that stress level goes up. And then, of course, if there's a firefight or combat involved, then the stress goes up, right? But then when you go back to the States, like that all kind of goes away. Now you're in that normal, wherever city you're living in, you get to see normal people, you can go to the drive-ins, whatever. Like, so now you're like living a little bit more relaxed, stress-free, way less stress life. For police work, as soon as you get in uniform and you're in that patrol car, you're assuming that someone is out to get you, right? If I make the traffic stop, is that person in that car going to try and kill me? If I'm going to a call for service, cops get ambushed constantly. So now you have to park away from where you're going. You have to sneak up. When you're talking to normal people, even victims will attack police officers. So now, even though I'm here trying to help someone, I have to prepare myself for this person to attack me, even though they're the victim of a crime. For example, the number one call for service for police officers is domestic violence, and the number one call for service where police officers are hurt is domestic violence. And I don't know if like that's because we go to it so often, of course, statistically, you're more likely to get hurt doing that, right? So you're on this constant vigilance roller coaster. You from the moment you're at work till you leave, you're just on this you're just preparing to be attacked. So like you just have to be on. You have to be prepared and just looking around and stuff like that. And then now you're doing that Monday through Thursday or whatever that schedule is. And again, for those 8, 10, 12 hours, again, depending on which agency you work for, right? So 4 to 5 days a week for 10 to 12 hours a day, I'm basically waiting for someone to try and kill me. So it's just a different mentality. And then again, you're just having that constantly, however many days a week we work and 365 days. And so you don't have that break, so to speak, like you do have that mental break in the military.
That makes sense. You can actually leave it behind probably at some point in the military, but not so much when you're a cop.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then again, if you're, when we're young as a cop, like you just want to do more cop stuff and you're just excited to do cop stuff and you're working overtime and you're just taking on more of that stuff because you're young and you're excited and you don't understand what it's doing to you because it's happening so slowly. And then it just takes its toll. So like mentally, being a police officer is way more difficult for me. And the military was like, same thing. It was young and excited and it was fun and doing that kind of stuff. And but again, you have those breaks, those releases.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what are things, it doesn't have to be personal to you. So if I'm writing a character and they're going through what you're going through, how do they find themselves on the weekend? Besides, we've talked about how workout helps, but and it can be things you do or things that you've seen friends and people around you do. What would be things that would even humanize that person more, which is a total writer phrase to say here. But how do you and the people around you find yourselves outside of work?
Are you asking like what we do or what can we do?
Yeah, like how do you fight depression? How are you not depressed all the time?
Yeah, so like that was I definitely was. I wasn't diagnosed or anything by any means. I didn't see anyone about it, but I just felt like it, right? I just noticed sleep wasn't going well. I didn't ever want to do anything. I was negative about everything, so I'm pretty sure I was. But so luckily, like I said, we had this guy come out and talk, and he wasn't the only one. We had him, and there was also a retired lieutenant, and they gave us these talks about like things to do, and one of the, like I said, for both of them, one of the big things was they said, just look at what you're doing now and what you used to do. What are your old hobbies? Are you even doing any of them? And sure enough, I had stopped doing all of them because I never wanted to leave my house. I just wanted to stay. Oh, there's the dogs.
Dogs are allowed. We'll allow that.
Yeah, so I just forced myself to start doing those things, or I even took on some new hobbies, especially living in this area. Like, I'm 30 minutes from Tahoe and I've never skied, and Tahoe's like world renowned for skiing.
Yes.
It's hard for me to get into crowds, large groups of crowds. I still struggle with that. But so I took up snowshoeing because again, that's a little bit more isolated, but get out and doing those things, and downloaded an app that showed me all the local hikes in the area. So I'd go and hike them. And
was it all trails?
Yeah, it's all trails. I love that.
Wonderful.
It's perfect.
They have a really good collection for area of trails. Okay, sorry.
And then, just started picking up things like that. Anything to get outdoors, because again, just the research shows like how good like the sun is for you, or just nature in general. And so I started doing those types of things and took up some woodworking stuff. I bought some various woodworking power tools and stuff like that, and I built some gardening boxes, and I garden a little, and just doing anything that's not police related, like nothing police related. Yeah.
Podcast
right?
about writing, but
absolutely.
we're making you talk about police.
Yes.
I used to like build models and stuff, so I bought a model, but it's still just sitting. I'm looking right at it. It's just in its box. Yeah.
Soon.
I never got it. Yeah. That one's, I don't know if I'm gonna get it. I started to try and draw some more again. I used to draw all the time. I think a lot of guys hunt. A lot of guys golf. I did not know how many people golfed in our department, but apparently it's majority golf.
I think like there's this responsibility in our society that all old dudes have to golf.
I've never done it. Yeah, definitely a lot of hunting here in the department.
Okay, so I have a question for you now. What are some things that someone military or police work would never do after being military and police work? Like they probably had a hobby, and after their training and understanding of the world and stuff, are there certain hobbies or things or behaviors that are dropped?
I can't imagine police departments are joining any like biker gangs. You know what I mean? Something like that, maybe.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned too, like you went to snowshoeing instead of skiing. Was avoiding crowds something you did before, or is that something you've picked up?
I didn't intentionally ever avoid large crowds before, and now I do make a conscious effort. Like that's a big thing. Like where are we going? Well, I need to know how many people are going to be there. Is this a large crowd venue? And then I would need to like prepare myself for that. And then, still to this day, I can't go there without starting to do like a threat assessment. I know a lot of like the military guys will do that kind of stuff still. You can't drive down the street without wondering if that's an IED over there or that kind of stuff. So there is that's still ingrained in us. So like I won't, if I go to a restaurant, I have to sit in a certain seat and I have to face a certain way and that kind of stuff. But I'll do it. I'll go, okay, let's go. But I just have to do something to make it more manageable for me.
What does a typical threat assessment entail?
Well, mostly you're just going in and sizing up the people. You're definitely seeing it on the way in, like what kind of neighborhood you're in. You're going to look at the cars. You're going to definitely look at the people. And then you're just going to start looking at like avenues of approach and exit and things like that.
Are there any red flags that would stop you from going in somewhere?
A neighborhood would definitely put up a red flag where I wouldn't want to go there. Certain neighborhoods, I wouldn't go and eat there. Like I said, if you just go in and you can just...
If you were going into like a town you had never been before, you're like out vacationing with your family, what red flags would a neighbor put up that would keep you from going into a restaurant?
Well, like it's probably the lack of certain things. So like if you're in a neighborhood where people are walking their dogs and jogging, that's generally a good sign that you're in a good neighborhood. So if you're seeing like broken down cars, any sort of broken windows, glass on the ground, like broken bottles, those types of things, like you could just tell like people aren't like landscaping, that kind of stuff. If people aren't trimming their trees and hedging their bushes and stuff like that, that's generally a sign that you're in a troublesome neighborhood. And if people are just standing around doing nothing, that would be a big sign too.
Because they probably aren't doing nothing. They're just not doing
Right.
anything good.
Yeah. Like especially if it's like in the middle of the day, like why aren't you at work? Most people work, right? So if there's people that look like they're able to work but they're not, then you just sort of start wondering, well, what are you doing?
That's not something you can leave behind either. I can imagine as a cop, like that's not something you can just be like, just ignore it today. No big deal. Like it's just not possible.
Yeah, so like when we do go somewhere, if we're wanting to go somewhere, I just have to like mentally prepare myself for that. And then when we get there, I just have to go through my routine and then I can manage it better.
Can I ask what your routine is?
Well, yeah, just like those things that I talked about. You unfortunately just start doing weird scenarios. Like if someone comes in that door doing this action, someone comes in that door with a gun, what am I going to do? Okay, now what if it's that door over there? Now what am I going to do? Okay, what if it's this door over there? What am I going to do? So then you start trying to like position yourself where what would be the best position for me to be in if it's all three of those or one of those three, because you want to, again, you don't know which one, well, each one could have its pros and cons, so you're just trying to pick the spot you can be in with the most pros, I guess. But probably the number one thing I do is just start sizing people up and looking at people. There's generally signs and cues that people are carrying guns, so I start looking for those types of things.
I have to ask, what are some of those?
Well, if you had to carry a gun, some of them are pretty obvious. Large baggy clothing that doesn't match the weather, right? If it's a summer day and you have a gun, you're going to still need to wear a jacket or something to cover it. It's also a thing that we call indexing. If you have a gun, you constantly want to like make sure it's still there, because a lot of people, again, don't know how to carry one properly, so they'll just stuff it in their pants. But just generally walking and stuff, it's going to move around, so you have to keep touching it to make sure it hasn't fallen or moved. So they'll like regularly just touch it, and it's like that's abnormal. Or if they're walking, they'll like hold their hand against it to kind of keep it in place. Like if their clothing is too baggy and it's not holding it tight enough, they'll walk oddly, things like that.
That makes sense. It's funny because most of the things that you talk about, I feel like whenever I read a book or watch a movie, like someone being able to pick up those things and notice these things is like some like special spy person or military person or, I don't know, special criminal analysis person or whatever show you're watching. And that's like more, it seems like it's more used in everyday
Mhm.
couples.
Yeah, they're teaching us that even in the academy, but you don't really respect it or take advantage of it until you essentially run into it. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is the exact situation that they spoke to us about. And now you're seeing it. And then it really, really hits home and it becomes ingrained. But then now you can't turn it off just because you're doing it so often.
I think once you hit that like moment of like life or death situation, that adheres and there's no possible way to unwind yourself from it. And now that's your life. Like now that's
Mm-hmm.
your risk factor. And now this is what you look for from now on to keep yourself and everybody around you safe.
I have a question, actually, a follow up. Do you remember your first life or death situation? I guess you would probably have one in military and in cop life, right?
Yeah.
Was it profound and
Oh,
affect
yeah,
you?
absolutely. The military, I had a few, was in Haiti. I was just doing guard duty. I was in a guard tower, and some dude jumped over a wall, and I didn't notice what he was doing at first, and it was dark, and he fired around at my tower. And then jumped back over before I could shoot back, you know. But the worst ones were like near accidents and stuff like that. Like again, it's at night, we're flying around in a Black Hawk, and I look up, and both the pilots, it was like a cartoon. They had their maps up like in front of them, right, blocking
Oh my
the
God.
entire screen. And I thought, oh my gosh, you guys are idiots. Like, there's a little bit of rivalry, I guess, between the combat arms, the non-combat arms. So you're just like, okay, you guys are, unprofessional is probably the nice way to put it. And at night, you could see the other Black Hawk's tail in the windshield, but they had blocked it. So they pulled the map down, and it looked like that tail was in the windshield.
Oh my
And
God.
whichever one grabbed the pilot, grabbed their stick, and Black Hawks aren't meant to go like vertical like this, and that's what it felt like. And I seriously, I remember this day, like thinking, well, that's it. That's how I'm dead. Like idiot pilots. And they were able to bring it back, and we didn't die, and we landed, and we all just like stood there for like had to be a minute just silent, and everyone's like, did you see that? Did you like? Then we just started all talking like, did you see what happened? I can't believe it. And it was humorous after the fact, but
Yeah. Funny later, sort of, but not
yeah,
really. But yeah. Oh my gosh.
definitely funny later.
No, I want to hear more stories. I'll ask after. Keep going.
I'm trying to think for the military. That was probably. I do remember we were doing a range, and a live fire range, and I was by a tree, and I'm on one side of the tree. Everyone's just shooting around us, and I turned and looked because someone had like jumped onto the tree right next to me, and his rifle was pointed like right at my face.
Oh.
And I pulled my head back just as he shot.
So that would be the accident.
Yeah, most of them are like just dumb accidents.
Wow.
Like, I don't know. Looking back, it's probably not a good idea to give young people access to such powerful firearms. Like we were at a machine gun range, and there was turkeys, so of course we shot the turkeys. And, it's just, we're idiots.
Whoops.
Yeah, we knew we weren't supposed to, but I don't know. When you have a machine gun and you see something out there, what else are you supposed to do? Like I said, it was just young and stupid.
There's no other option.
A lot of young and stupid things. For law enforcement, the big one would be, it was the worst one because I couldn't see the guy. There was a guy shooting his gun out in the air. So we kind of tracked down where the house was, and he had stopped shooting. So we didn't there was no like urgency to get in there and put a stop to it type of thing. And then, we had surrounded the house, and he had all his lights off, so we couldn't see. And he came out of the back, And you don't want to turn your light on because then he knows where you're at. And so people in the front were giving him verbal commands. And I think my partner was with me in the backyard. We were in another neighbor's house that backed up to his house. I think maybe she had made some noise. It could have been me, but I thought I had heard her. Anyway, he started cranking off rounds at us, and I couldn't see him because it was just pitch black. So that was pretty scary. And then we've had some definite scary vehicle pursuits where just going a little bit too fast, and the vehicles are nice and all, but once you're getting up to like 125, like it's just, you hit a little bump and that car goes flying and just barely able to control it, keep it back. I had this 2000 Dodge Durango, and I got up to like 125 and on the freeway, and just a slight turn, and that thing started to go over. It felt like it. I don't know if the two wheels came up off the ground, but it sure felt like it.
That's your adrenaline dose of the month.
Yeah.
Oof.
Do they do training for driving for high-speed chase? What does that entail?
A lot of it's just perception reaction stuff. It's just eventually vehicle operations. So like they'll put up cones and you got to swerve around cones and slam on the brakes. They've got like these series of lights and you drive at the lights and they're all off, and then one will flash a certain color and you have to react to it. So there'll be like 3 in a row. And then, if this one turns green, you have to go to that one. And so you just keep going faster and faster. And so you have to react to it faster. And then we do the pit, the pursuit intervention technique, where you drive your car up and hit it from the side and spin it around. And some of it's just normal backing and parking because we get in accidents, just normal driving. Yeah. And so we just have to learn how to park the car and back it up.
Yep.
I was thinking about that when Poppy first started talking about life or death, and I was asking you about those life or death and if you remembered them. Do you think as a mindset you walk away more grateful for life, or as a mindset you walk away more looking for the next life or death situation?
Yeah, probably the latter. I bet you I'm more looking for when's the next one going to happen. We watch these videos of cops and other agencies getting shot or killed for whatever happened. And it's just frustrating because you can sort of see it coming. And then while it's happening, it's just terrible. It's just horrible experience. And you just worry that could have been you.
I can imagine trying to learn from that would be difficult, because I'm sure it is frustrating to see it happen and be like, oh, if he would have just done this, it would have been fine. And it's like, yeah, but you can't take back time. That's not possible. Right. That would be difficult.
Yeah, especially because it's just like a normal everyday thing. Like they're just going to like a traffic stop. They just made a traffic stop because someone was speeding. They don't know what's going on. And next thing you know, this person's jumping out and shooting at the officer. Like, that's something we do constantly. Now I see it, and you just, now I'm making a traffic stop, and you're just thinking, is this my time? Is this going to be the one? You just don't know. So if you're making 3 to 5 traffic stops a night, now you just have that ingrained in you, just worried that whole time. Is this gonna, are they gonna get out and try and shoot me? And then, I've gone up and talked to someone, and I see a gun many times. People have, especially in our state. In our country, everyone's got guns. That's like an unfortunate thing, but so you're just sort of hoping they don't do anything silly, and just like pleading with them, like, just don't touch the gun. And then sometimes people listen to us and sometimes they don't. Fought people who have had guns on them, and now we're fighting for the gun. I've had people try and get my gun, and now they're trying to get my gun, and I can only assume what they want to do with it, right? So, just have too many of those. So now I just go to that call for service. And the hard thing is, like, if it's at a house and I go to that house again, and I'm like, okay, last time I was at this house, I just fought this person. Now I'm going to have to fight this person again. And then sometimes it is that exact same person. Oh. And so now you're worried. And then you have to do it as professional as you can. And you can't treat them like they're going to do it again, but you have to be prepared that they are going to do it again.
I believe it. So we've been babbling for a while. I'm going to kind of wrap us up. I did want to, because it's me, I wanted to ask you some questions to end, and these are really important questions to me. So I need you to be really serious when you think about the answer.
Oh, no.
I can do that.
Okay. So my first question to you is, I need you to imagine a world where the zombies are coming.
I've done this. Okay.
Then I need to know, you have to get out of your house and go, and you have 5 minutes. What do you grab?
As much ammo and my guns, because I do think that...
Where do you go? Yeah.
I have thought about that. There's multiple things. Like, you need... I don't think I'd stay here, because once everything is collapsing, so like, no running water, no services, that kind of stuff. So you need to go somewhere where food grows easily, because everyone thinks, oh, I'll just hunt. But there's not a lot of animals out there constantly. You really do need to grow food.
This is why you picked up gardening, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought so.
So I'd probably go California, south, where, like, again, it's way easier to grow food and multiple different kinds, because that's the other issue, is you can't just live off of one crop. You need multiple. Otherwise, you start running into, like, health problems and stuff like that. Somewhere, of course, where there's water.
What kind of people do you avoid to take with you?
Avoid?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, just mentally weak people, I guess. Because I'm assuming, of course...
How is someone mentally weak? What does that mean?
There's a zombie, right? It looks and acts human-like, and you have to kill it. That's got to be hard.
So if you're not able to kill, you're mentally weak.
Well, for sure. Well, yeah. I guess there's different kinds, right? So if they...
I just need to know how to prove my mental strength to you, because I need to be on your zombie.
Well, so then you would definitely need multiple roles, right? If you need someone to do different things. So if I'm doing the zombie killing, then I need you to do, I don't know, the gardening or whatever.
I'm actually better at gardening.
Mechanic, medical stuff. We're going to need someone to do medical stuff for sure.
I'm really good at faking stuff.
Yeah, if you study which plants help.
You're very good at research, so I'm sure that in your mind somewhere, you're like, wait, guys, I have a situation for this. There was this one time that I read an encyclopedia of Fae, and this is what they did, and we can totally do that, guys. It's going to be great.
They just, like, piling up his ammo and guns, and I'm piling up the encyclopedias.
You backpack.
I'm like, all right, we know everything about dragons and fairies. Let's go.
I would need I need you to be like a pioneer. Those people had it down, right?
And homesteaders, yeah.
Yes, those folks could do it.
No, you need to be able to make like a water filter out of cheesecloth. You got this.
Mm-hmm. Churn butter.
Would you stop it? He's going to take you instead of me.
I have to make my way across the states, but it's cool. I got this. Y'all can just come to Virginia. Yeah. We got like tons of deer and like...
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be fine. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, do you have any final questions that you want to ask?
Okay. So for instance, all right, we've gone through that. We totally understand now. It's not just a superficial, hey, I'm going to have a character that's a cop, doop-de-doo kind of event. What is the best way for somebody to gather really personal information without being an absolute unkind? I can think of a lot of words right now, but none of them are fitting to go along with a delightful podcast. Somebody who's not rude. There we go. Yeah. That's close enough.
Someone who's an asshat. How do you not be an asshat
when you're asking for help for research?
The best thing is go on a ride-along. Like, well, I know ours is shut down, but I don't know an agency that doesn't do ride-alongs. As long as you aren't, convicted murderer, they'll let you do a ride-along. They do a quick little background check on you, but you can have some things and they'll let you go. In fact, I did a ride-along and I kept looking at this kid and I'm like, you look so familiar. So when he wasn't looking, I looked up his name and sure enough, I had arrested him. So they let him ride with me. It was a little awkward. But good for him he wanted to be better and
that's good.
So go on a ride along and again, like something
positive influence.
Don't knock someone who's been arrested. We know that you've pulled up my mugshot before. So we're gonna give people the benefit of the doubt.
And you can go on a ride along. Have you been on a ride along with me?
I don't think I have.
You should.
Go on a ride along.
You definitely should.
Okay.
So go on a ride along.
All right, I will.
Do you just call like the police department and be like, "Hey, I'm an author and I'm doing some research on this and would like to ride along with somebody?" Mm-hmm. Is that possible? That's
Absolutely.
Pretty much what you say?
Yeah.
Okay. That's 100%. Really good to know.
Like we take a lot of college students. I've done interviews similar to this for researchers and stuff like that. So it's not abnormal by any means. A lot of times, a lot of the ride-alongs are by people who are interested in law enforcement and want to be a cop, so they'll do that. And then even then, like, you can do sit-alongs with our dispatch, and they have like an even more interesting perspective on law enforcement.
Oh, wow, I bet they do.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, listening to their stories is pretty fascinating, because they take that first call and, they're hearing the screaming or whatever, and the pleads for help and the crying, and then we go out and do whatever we do, and
they can't,
and then they get
they can't do anything until you get there.
And then a lot of the times they get no resolution. We just go to the
don't.
call,
and it gets cut off.
They're like, okay, that's it. The cops went and did their thing, and then now what? They want to know what happened. They want to know, did that person get help or whatever?
Do you get calls from dispatchers that be like, so how'd that case end up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot. And then we go up there, we try. Luckily, our agency, we can go and talk to our dispatchers.
That's
a lot
good.
of times some agencies will separate them, and you're not allowed to go in, but we're allowed to. So we have a good relationship with our dispatchers.
Good. That would be hard.
But all the cops that I work with, and some that I don't work with, they're very interested in educating the public, because we are kind of like that anomaly. We're like that secret. We do keep secrets, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it. We just don't air our dirty laundry, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of things we do, people don't understand why we do it. So we enjoy actually educating people on the what. This is why I did this. This is why I have to do it this way. And then they also get to see those calls for service and seeing just what we're doing that every hour.
That makes sense. That's good. I like that too.
But yeah, we don't.
I guess I'm going on a ride along.
Right along, because we don't do well when you just approach us on the street or come and wave at. Now we're in that fight mode again. Like, why is this person approaching me for no reason? Are they trying to ambush me, or are they trying to hurt me? Whatever. So we struggle with that. So we probably don't give out a lot of info when that happens. But the ride along, you're just sitting there right next to you, and you get to ask all those questions.
That's wonderful. That's really, really good to know. That's some super good information.
Is there any way that someone could gain information from military?
I wonder if, not really. Even when we were in, we did a few of those displays and stuff like that, where we would lay out all our equipment and someone could come up and look at it, and they would do some demonstrations, right, flying in the helicopters and doing some maneuvers and stuff like that. But the questions were, I guess you could approach, but now you're having to wait for them to set that up and do that. But just to go on base, and they're just not going to let anyone on base to ask those kind of questions. There might be a public affair information officer you could probably contact, maybe set something up like that. But we never had anything like that ever.
It's a good start, though. That's a good start, trying to figure out where to get it.
I did find using YouTube, and there are a lot of military officers who will just record hanging out with their buddies or do interviews, and there's a wealth of people, real people actually just living, and I think trying to connect and talk to people. And I found a lot of that on YouTube.
Now that you mentioned that, I did show you those. There are a few people out there that are just this is what we do day to day.
It was really helpful. I mean, I did have a notebook next to me with notes that I was just then pages of notes to ask you after watching it, but they were a great place to start off to know what questions I wanted to ask. And that's it. You've been on Punch Keys.
Gosh, this has been super helpful. Thank you so very, very much. I have learned an absolute ton. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, and I'm sure I will be harassing you soon.
I look forward to it.
Cass is going on a ride along.
Right.
She'll be bug you all day long. She'll be taking notes.
I'm totally doing that.
Yes.
All right, until the next time, keep punching the keys, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and if you liked this episode, please subscribe and give us that clickable 5-star love.
Got writer questions or feedback? Reach out through our website, and until next time, make sure to punch the keys.